provides significant performance improvements from the default Android emulator. You'll notice that the default Android emulator runs dog slow. Typically, you're best off just running on a native Android device, but if you don't have one of those, you can use the HAXM emulator. It's created by Intel, and it uses Intel virtualization technology. So make sure that you've got that running on your machine, or that your machine is able to run that before you try and do this. Now, the first step you want to do is actually look up the instructions on how to install the Intel HAXM accelerator. And now we're going to be able to install this through the Android utility itself, but there's a couple of extra steps that you have to do outside of the Android utility. So, close this. We're right here in Android Studio. If we click Monitor, no, we want to SDK Manager. We're going to open up the SDK Manager. And it should come up here in just a second. In the meantime, I'll pull up the documentation. For the HAXM accelerator. Now be sure you read through this entire documentation because there's a couple of little gotchas that can really burn a lot of time. And I'll explain those in just a couple seconds. Okay, here we have the Android SDK Manager. Now the instructions are going to tell you go down here to the bottom and make sure that you install this emulator accelerator down here. And when you install this, this is only going to download the package. You'll need to go in, unzip the package, run the executable or .dmg if you're on Mac, and then it will be installed. And then there's one more step on top of that. So you see right here I've got this installed, which means it's just downloaded. I can go to this URL. I can go to appstudio/sdk/extras/intel, and that's where the download's going to be located. Now this is going to be a little bit different from Windows, but essentially this is your Android home where it's going to be located. So let's go ahead and open up a window. And they said extras and they said Intel. Now here is the DMG. It might be an executable that you double click to install. It's going to run the installation and it's going to install the HAXM emulator. Now, when you go back to your device manager, you're going to try and use a different CPU than the traditional default emulator, and I'll show you what I mean here in just a second. Okay, let's click and make a new Android virtual device. Pick anything. And right here, this is where you're going to select either the Intel Atom, which is the HAXM accelerated emulator, or the traditional ARM, which is the slow, really slow ass emulator. If in fact that you only see the ARM here, the solution is that you have, in addition to installing the HAXM emulator in the SDK manager, you also have to install the Atom image for any SDK API version that you would like to work with. So I spent a couple of hours on this last night. It was because I didn't have this system image installed to work from. So now, if we go back to the virtual device manager, we say new, I can type in this, I can go down here, I can pick HAXM, I can pick Intel Atom, or I can pick any one I want. But the point is you have to have that system image installed in order for you to get to the Intel Atom emulator. And that's how it's installed. Thank you for listening.